Welcome everyone and thanks for joining us today. So today we're going to present you with NetSuite's planning and budgeting solution. I'm David Kennett. I think most of you have met me before, Sales and Marketing Director at Elevate2. Mahdi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, David. Good morning or good afternoon to everybody. My name is Mahdi Abbas, and I am the NetSuite Planning Budgeting Accounts Executive. And I'll be running you through today's demonstration.
Great, thanks, Mahdi. Should we go to the next slide, please? So first of all, we have to put up this safe harbor statement, which is effectively saying that what you're going to be shown today is current product. We're not going to be talking about anything that may or may not be released in the future. If we were to mention anything that is on the roadmap and isn't in the current product, then please don't make any investment decisions based upon future expectations. It's best to evaluate the software as it is today. Okay, so the agenda for today's session is start with introductions. We'll move on to the current state of financial planning and analysis. Give a bit of background to how people tend to do financial planning and analysis, and then move on to an actual demonstration of the solution. What is NetSuite's planning and budgeting solution? Why it's different to other solutions in the marketplace and why it might be of interest to you. And then we'll talk about some customer success stories and finally finish with some next steps. Now, at the end, we'll also take questions. So if you do have any questions, just type them into the chat as we're going, and we can address those at the end. Okay, next slide, please, Mahdi. So this webinar has been run by Elevate2 and in conjunction with Oracle NetSuite. We are a local London-based business consultancy, a NetSuite partner, and also a NetSuite planning and budgeting partner. And we have over 50 ERP, CRM, and planning clients now. Mainly UK headquartered businesses with multiple entities, quite often international, the kind of businesses that really benefit from having robust planning and budgeting processes within their organizations. Quite often we see that our customers are using Excel to do a lot of budgeting and planning, and there's a lot of manual work involved. So this is really where NetSuite planning and budgeting can help. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So over to you, Mahdi. I think you're going to take it from here.
I am indeed. Thank you so much, David. So the current state of FP&A and operational planning. So here are the sad facts that we talk about quite often. And there's one in there that I'm also going to include, but this is independent research from Ventana Research and KPMG. And a lot of this might resonate with you. Feel free to put up your hands if it does. This is interactive, so feel free to put anything you like into the chat box and David will get to it and make us aware. Alternatively, feel free to put yourself off mute if any of these do resonate. So first off, 70% of companies still use spreadsheets across their planning and forecasting processes. Generally working within this space for about 4 to 5 years now, I've seen that it's more likely 95%. Even if you are using a legacy-based system, you'll still tend to do quite a lot of the operational processes within Excel. 62% of companies are buried in basic duties with little to no time to do more analytical work. 50% of most finance organizations' time is spent on operational processes. And as you're probably noticing, there's a bit of a theme going on within this slide. 30% of most finance time is spent on financial reporting and control. And finally, only 20% of most finance organizations' time is spent on adding value by improving financial performance. Now, does this stand out to anyone in the crowd today? we've had quite a lot of people saying that the last icon is closer to 5 or 10%. The other thing that I wanted to make note of as well with these sad facts is, based on the discussions that I'm having anyway, more than 100% of the people that I'm speaking to are having to do more what-if scenarios and planning for the future based on the current time frame that we're living in. So I've got customers and other prospects that are doing 8 to 9 what-if scenarios within a quarter, just due to the fact that they're having to either forecast on loss of earnings throughout the year or other areas like this. Now, Excel is okay, but what you'll tend to find is that there's multiple versions of your budget, the final budget, the final budget, version 2, version 3, and from all different departments that you're going to have to consolidate rather than being able to collaborate with those teams. Excel may stop working altogether, it may stop responding, or even worse, it may crash and burn down, which if anyone's seen the news recently, the government have had some similar issues with Excel as of late. Now, NetSuite Planning and Budgeting solve these spreadsheet challenges by being able to automate the way that you're doing your forecasting and reporting, allowing you to collaborate with your team, so not having to manually copy and paste everything that they send you in different Excel formats, in different emails and so on. They're able to upload and add to the budget themselves, visualize the data in a much more dynamic and stimulating way via our dashboards. It allows you to analyze the data and work against it much more easily with better access, which essentially allows you to manage your day-to-day much more effectively, which as you can see here by this icon means very, very happy finance people. So from here, what I'm going to do is run into the demonstration. We wanted to give you a quick snippet into the background, but also show you exactly what you're going to get out of the box with the solution. So if you bear with me for a second. So just starting off here within NetSuite. So first off, we hold the only true integration with NetSuite, which will directly pull all of your data via safe searches. For anyone who is using NetSuite at the moment, you'll notice that there is a planning and budgeting button right here at the top, which I know it will give you direct access to the solution itself. What you will notice is that I share this with quite a lot of my team, so there's a few of us in here, and in preparation for this webinar, I've already set up NetSuite Planning and Budgeting. So if we go back to our home screen, this is just our income statements, which I'll get into within a second. I'm also going to drop this down to the bottom. So first off, what I know again is quite key for a lot of the people that are on the call, as well as what I've mentioned earlier, are what if scenarios. So first off, I wanted to kind of give you a view of that, but just looking at the home page, as it were. So I'm logged in today as an administrator. You'll notice that we've got an announcements panel here, which has got our forecast timeframe. We can click over to see if there's additional announcements, but we can see that there's one, but it will just give us the full list if there's multiple announcements maybe left by our CFO or our MD. So the forecasting timeframe, forecast period starts from September 2018 to December 2019. Historical actual data is loaded from January all the way to August 2018. So this can be this announcement that we've seen here today. It could be saying that we're starting our budgeting process in the month of October, or it could be we need to bring down OPEX expenses by 10% across the next fiscal year. It can be a range of anything that you want to see and more. Beyond that, we can go back. There is a recent panel. So everything has an audit trail behind it. So you can see here that I've been in the income statement today on the 14th of the 10th. You can see that on the 1st of the 10th, we went into sales units demand planned using predictive analysis. And if we were to click any of these star buttons on the side, these reports would end up in our favorites, which would just give us a very quick and easy way to get specifically to those reports. Now you'll notice a range of cards here on the side. These cards are essentially giving us access to all of the different areas that we're going to work across. So sales forecasting, financial forecasting, workforce planning, what if scenarios, and so on. And it'd be very specific to each organization. So the look and feel can change, the backgrounds, the icons, even the logo in the top corner can change to your organizations, and we can give you the look and feel of specifically what you want to see and do. So starting off, let's jump into a quick what if scenario. So as you can see here, I'm going to move this back up, apologies. As you can see here, we've not only got some great graphs and bars and so on that you can see that have the original forecast against the the plan itself, and then you've also got the what if scenario 1 that we've already executed. Now this can be cleared and we can create something new, or we can go on and create something new in what if scenario 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So the way we would do that is right click over the what if scenario 2, and then we execute. So let's say, for instance, we are looking at a deficit of this year. So we're planning around, for instance, the current time frame that we're in. So let's say we go to minus 0.2, minus 0.3, and minus 0.5, just as a baseline for what we're working off. Now we want to select the scenario that we're working from, and obviously NetSuite Planning and Budgeting gives you a multitude of different forecasts as well. So you could have forecast 1, forecast 2, forecast 3 in here. Within our archives would generally be our budget, actuals, and so on. So if we click onto forecast, just so we've got something to work from, and then you'll see that it's changed quite quickly, and we're working on what if scenario 2, and push the launch button. Now you'll see that it's running all of the parameters in the background whilst it's running this simulation. And you'll immediately see that we've got what if scenario 2 within all of our graphs. We can see that there is a deficit. So there's our upturn, there's our downturn in what if scenario 2, but maybe we're looking at an even lower downturn. So here in our what if scenario 2. And on top of that, you'll have all of your underlying detail here as well. So you've got your actual for current month versus forecast of current month, which is all working off of the original plan. So this is your your variance report. You've got all of your different variance reports, and this is based off of the information that we're already working on within our what if analysis. And we've got a range of different reports here on the side as well. Actual versus current month for plan versus current month. Actual current month versus prior year forecast for current month, full year actual versus forecast, and so on. So we've got a range of different variances, and these can all be set up specifically the way that you'd like them to. So just giving you a view of the different variance reports and so on. If we go back into the original one, actually, what I wanted to point out is these are all editable, so they can all be, you can include additional detail within this information. So for instance, if I was to put Elevate2 webinar, just as a point, we can save that. You can see it's a slightly different color to the rest of the yellows that are here. The rest are quite pale, whereas this one's a little bit brighter. It's just meaning that we have to save the information. If we hadn't saved it, and clicked onto another tab, then it would give us the option to discard if need be. And on top of that, we can right click and leave additional comments, attachments. We can lock cells to make sure that none of this can be edited in the background. And even this bit of information here, if I right click against it, we should be able to see exactly, if we go to comments, we should be able to see exactly what comments have been left. So if I put Elevate2 in the comments section, it would state here that in the audit trail that the administrator left this at 1:15 p.m. on the 14th of October. Okay. Now moving back to our what if analysis, again, if this is something that you're, it is key for your organization to work on these parameters, you can create as many as you want. We can create more what if scenario reports for you to add additional information in. And if you think that these numbers are a little bit too low, all you have to do is right click and push clear what if scenario. And if you just launch that, and it will clear off the what if scenario 2 that we just previously created within this demonstration. Just before I move on from this area, were there any questions thus far, either David or anyone on the call?
The only question we've had so far is whether this will be recorded and shared afterwards, which the answer is yes, we are recording and we will share it afterwards.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to jump into my other pod really quickly, just because it's got some vibrant dashboards I think might be very applicable to everybody on the call. So I'm jumping in here. Again, this is our income statement because I wanted to make sure that everything was aligned for today's session. So very similar layout. We've still got the same one announcement, except the start period here on the announcements panel. What we will notice though is at the top of the screen, we've got 3 different buttons. These are what we call our KPI infolets. So these are quick rendered page dashboards, which are gathering information from all of your integrations, so NetSuite or any other open source system that you are integrated with, to provide these for you. We have one specific customer who uses this, quite a large nursery chain, who have more than 800 licenses. And they specifically use these dashboards that, again, we call our KPI infolets, but have roughly about 8 or 9 pages of just these. And most of their users who are uploading their budgets mainly use NetSuite planning and budgeting just for these specific dashboards and views. They can be set up to review any data that you want to look across. And what you'll notice as well is that they're all interactive. So if we hover over our total year EBITDA, we can hover over the actual number versus what we actually forecasted against. So there's a bit of a deficit this year. You'll also notice that we've got a flip panel on each of the cards, which means that they're all able to extend and expand. So you can see, again, we can hover over them and gather that information, but we can expand again against it. So we're looking at total year sales now, but we're expanding against it to look at the total sales by individual rep. Now, this can be, for instance, if you are selling a specific item or different items, which you'll see within this demonstration. Rather than looking at the item, rather than looking at the sales rep and what they're bringing to the equation, whereas, for instance, Scott Tallman's bringing in 5.7 million, Edwin's bringing in 5.2. You can look at how well, for instance, each individual item is doing, and was it any of your particular products that you're selling across different markets. So this could be across the total year actual sales, not by rep, but by region, by each individual item, and so on and so forth. So this is just a snapshot of what you can have, but it can be delivered in any visual way that you want to actually review the data. And I'll just go into our secondary one. Now, this is more around, rather than KPIs, it's more just around the sales that we had talked about earlier. So we've got our total expenses here as well, OPEX. We've got our overall gross profit, which we're able to see here and expand across. And yeah, so these are our infolet tabs. Are there any questions around this area at all just before I do move on?
There's no questions in the chat, but anyone, please feel free to submit questions in the chat if you do have any.
Brilliant. Well, I'll leave this here for now then. So going back to our home screen, what I thought might be best to start off with is our sales and COGS. And again, you can see that quite a lot of these have a various variety of different areas within them. We're going to move into our sales and COGS, but we've obviously got CapEx, working capital, OpEx, and so on within this this card as well. And I will touch on some of those later today. So starting off, this is, for the purpose of this demonstration, we are looking at a IT hardware seller who is selling a range of different products such as iPads, monitors, and so on and so forth. And due to the purpose of what they're looking at, they're able to set an original baseline price for each of these products. And due to seasonality of when people are more likely to purchase or newer versions are coming in a short, was it in the interim time, they may want to have an alternate price line. So you can see here that the iPad 9.7 has gone from 550 to 375. We've got an alternate price tag that we might want to have maybe around the January sales, so to 450, and then maybe discounted price. So if we're offering a 5% discount at a specific point in time. This can also show uplift as well. As you can see, I can click into each of these tabs and do manual changes as and how I want. So for instance, I can change this over to 530 rather than, and then you'll notice again immediately that this is changed, the color is changed in the background, which just means that we need to save. There we go, and you notice that it's changed back to white already. Okay, so moving forward, we've got our sales price schedule adjustment. So this is really talking about when the baseline price is going to change. And again, this is working more on the monetary value rather than units, but well, the item price was, this is talking more about the units based on those prices. Each of the prices are based here, so we can change these to a various range of different variables. So we can even have them as manual on the baseline price, alternate price 1, 2, and 3. And if we wanted to add a variable adjustment uplift, so we can increase by a percentage base, we're able to do so. Now, what you will notice as well is our point of view tab at the top. So specifically within this environment, we're looking at the scenario being forecast, the subsidiary being the US, and we're looking at the reporting currency within USD. Each of these will obviously adhere to local rules, but due to sharing with quite a lot of colleagues in the US, we generally work within the US-based market. So that's why that's set there, but we do have obviously a range of customers, which you'll see in a little while, who are across all of EMEA, so who adhere to both UK or different European rules as well. So if we move to the sales price customer adjustment, so we can see here that already the point of view has changed because we're now looking at the relationship that we have with a specific customer, Abbas Inc. in this case. If I click into this really quickly, just to show you the types of relationships you have. So for instance, if some of you are selling via eBay, if some of you are selling via Amazon, then there's that availability as well. But it's looking at the total relationship and total customers, and we've classified the ones that we're working with in enterprise, mid-market, and SMB, all of which have a various range of different customers who are buying from us. So Abbas Inc., NTags, VAC Supplies. I promise you I didn't make these names up. This was what was delivered. But we've also got other mid-market customers as well that we can work with. So we can review this data in any way, and this is just one of many ways that you're able to slice and dice the data, as we say. So being able to work against multiple different relationships, customers, being able to slice against price lines, and so on and so forth. but I'll get into that as well when we go a bit further into the demonstration. So I'm going to click down on the tab on the left here. Now, this is going directly into our forecasting element. So you can see here, these cells from January to July are blocked out. That's because from January to July, these are actuals. We're working against FY18 here for the purpose of demonstration. So we're forecasting against August to December. So we've got a 5-month forecast and then an entire full year forecast moving forward for FY19. Right back at the beginning, we're able to work across a multitude of different trends. So here we've got a manual forecast, but we might want to do a 3, 6, 9, 12-month rolling forecast, or in some of the cases that you can see against this, we're working against prior year actuals. Perhaps we want prior year actuals against 500%, which is quite a large adjustment, but hey. For instance, we might want to change this to a 12-month rolling forecast rather than a 3-month rolling forecast, but to work on the variable adjustment as well to make sure that it's added as we're extending this across. And you'll notice that they're both in yellow now. So if I push save again, you'll see all of the numbers start to change. So it's went from 520 to 390 quite quickly here. You'll also notice that all of these are in blue, which just means that they've got underlying detail in the commentary to the side, so we can quite quickly see what is attached to them and why that information is there. So this is from the customer perspective. So we're looking at specific customers within our point of view at the top. But if we go to our sales units by product aspect, which means that we're basically looking at specific product and how that's working against all of our customers within a specific customer category. So whether that be enterprise, mid-market, or SMB, we're able to slice and dice that and choose between which ones we want to actually review the data against and do that sales planning by the units in the background of it. We also have our product sales revenue tab here at the top. So this is just a bit more of a consolidated view against one specific customer. Again, so this might be the cost of cost of goods sold with the inventory aside to it. It might additionally have any additional services that you might also include as well. And all of these are expandable. So if we want to see exactly how all of our lines are doing directly against each individual customer, we're able to, and of which we can obviously make those changes here at the top. Or there is also a pencil tool if we need to make multiple changes. So for instance, against subsidiary relationship and the reporting currency. Now, jumping down to the bottom. So what you'll notice in this tab is some more of the very quick fire dashboards that are able to be created within this solution. All of these are created from a drag and drop editor, so all of the information is able to be input directly after implementation, or directly after that, you can then create your own ad hoc reports and dashboards and create multiple tabs here at the top if you want to show different sales-based data working in a dashboard format, all of which are able to be expanded across, so you can take up the whole page. As this one's quite an expansive version, so we can click across total sales, which will expand for us. So we've got our services and our revenue. Now, if we want to look against this, against, for instance, all of our enterprise customers, as that has numbers against both, we can then see the exact detail on each customer on a monthly basis. If you do want to go more granular, that is also an option as well. The other part that I thought was quite interesting around our dashboards is how intuitively and quickly they're able to change based on our interest and the drillable functionality. So if we click onto the settings option right here on the side, you will notice that we're able to change the type of graphs that we do have. So for instance, if the line graph is not quite working for you and you want to change it to look a little bit more dynamic, you'll see that we can change it to a bar graph quite quickly. This total sales by customer trends is working across 2-year periods, so from January FY18 all the way to December FY19. You'll notice as well that we're able to hover and get that intuitive data to show us exactly what the numbers are. But the great thing about these graphs and dashboards are the fact that they're so intuitive and able to be drilled into. So for instance, we can click into our enterprise customers and quickly review the numbers here. Again, we can expand against it. You already can see that we can hover over the numbers, but just to give you a bit more of an impactful sight, we're able to expand across this against the entire screen. Okay, so this is our sales and COGS functionality at present. David, were there any questions so far within this before we do move on?
No questions yet.
Fantastic. So going back to our home screen. So at this point, we can go into a few different areas. I know for quite a lot of you, you'll be interested in the financials, obviously. We can go back into our reporting and analytics to see a bit more visual-based work as well as our variances. Or we can go into workforce. Is there any particular key area that anyone would like to see right now?
I'd crack on, Mahdi.
Yep, absolutely fine. So jumping into our financials, let's have a look at our income statement, also known as our P&L here in the UK. So first off, we can see that we are able to produce an income statement based on all of the data that we're gathering from our existing systems. So whether that be NetSuite or maybe an additional general ledger, you'll notice that all of our GL codes are here on the left-hand side, and it's gathering all of the information based on our sales data as well as the data coming in from our GL to provide us with this information. You'll notice right down the bottom, which is one of the key areas that I know for most people, is our net income. That's coming in from the overall derived number at the end of all of this information. Beyond this, we do have an income statement dashboard, all of which are able to be changed, edited, and reviewed in whatever way you would like to see fit. The next one is our income statement. So this income statement is basically produced quite quickly in the background off of our income statement report. It's able to be produced in PDF, HTML, or Excel format for any of those board packs that you need to put together, and they can be aligned to be sent out at the end of each week, month, and so on and so forth. Another key aspect that I thought might be a good point to touch on whilst in the income statement is our income statement drill report. So I'm going to move this back down to the bottom for now. And you can see here that we've got, within our point of view tab, we've got our subsidiary being the US currency, USD. The specific department that we're looking at is the administration, as they'll be looking over quite a lot of this key functionality. And the location, we've got this as undefined, but this will be UK, US, and so on. And what you'll notice against all of these tabs is that they're drillable. The way that we know that they're drillable is they've got these little L buttons on the top right-hand corner. Now, what this means is that you're able to drill all the way back into NetSuite or your other open source system to see exactly what this is. So for instance, if we're looking at training expenses, and if we click into the right click against the month of July, for instance, we can go to drill through. Now we can see here that we're drilling onto the sum total of £29,817. So if we drill through to source, it will open an additional landing page. The landing page is still within NetSuite planning and budgeting. It's to show you the breakdown of exactly what that 29,000 is being, it is actually coming from. So for instance, we can see here that we've got 11,000, 11,000, 4,000 and 3,000 coming to the sum total of 29,817 that I'd mentioned earlier. All of these would obviously be the types of training expenses that you were working against for this month. So this will be your overall consolidated number that shows up in your income statement. But we can go one step further. If we go onto the cog button here, we're able to drill through to source, which will then open up the page that will take us directly back to NetSuite itself. Which is where all of my data is sitting in this instance. So usually this will take us back into NetSuite. As you can see, NetSuite's at the top here. Apologies, I'm not sure why the disconnect has happened, but this is exactly what you'd see within NetSuite, but you'd just be able to have access to view the PDFs of each of these individual formats, where they've come from and what exactly they are. Right, moving into our balance sheet. So within the balance sheet, we're able to have not only a group consolidated balance sheet for all of our different subsidiaries or different locations, we're able to create as many balance sheets as we want to. So you can see again that we've got balance sheet 1 and balance sheet 2, and that's if you're working on multiple different versions or different versions for different areas, like different subsidiaries other than the US. Within our balance sheet, you can see again, we've got all of our GL codes. So we've got our fixed assets and so on and so forth. And just scrolling down to the bottom, we've got our total liabilities and equity, and making sure that this touches on the balance and equaling the 0 mark. You'll see very similar information here within this balance sheet, which is touching on the same thing, but again, this can be looked at for the multitude of different subsidiaries that you have within your organization, if that is a factor for you. And then we've got our balance sheet group consolidated report. So again, this is just showing specific Canadian currency, because that's the currency that's being chosen at the moment. So for instance, if I go into reporting currency, because again, most of our information's in the US, you'll see this has changed fairly quickly. If I push the go button, then we've got all of the detail there, not only against the US, but against Australia, Canada, and the UK, against our ex-eliminations and our group consolidated company. And again, as you see the little plus mark here, we're able to expand against all of these within our group consolidated balance sheet. And finally, just touching on the point of view tab that we had looked at earlier, we've got our, this is based off of our forecast as a scenario for the specific year of FY18 and January as the period. We can choose our currency slash subsidiary here at the top. And very similarly to our income statement, the final balance sheet at the end is one that is automatically produced for you in PDF, HTML, or Excel format. Okay, finally, going into our cash flow. So the cash flow working directly off of our base forecast that we've gone into earlier on, and also the differentiator between our P&L and our balance sheet, giving us all of our overall cash in and out, which again, scroll down to the bottom, we've got our net change for cash in period, our cash at the beginning of the period and cash at the end of the period that we're able to work against. At the top, we've also got a group consolidated cash flow as well. giving us the same numbers, but was it the same side accounts, but against all of our subsidiaries across the globe, whether it just be 4 or if you have a multitude of subsidiaries, you're able to obviously import all of that data within NetSuite Planning and Budgeting to produce this level of cash flow report. And very similarly to our previous 2, we have the cash flow report that is able to be brought across via PDF, HTML, or Excel format. During the implementation phase, if you want to have all 3 of these already put together into one group management report, so that way you're not sending multitudes of emails, that can also be set up as well. Okay. So going back into our home screen, I wanted to touch on our reporting and analytics tab. So in here, we can see a range of different dashboards that we have within our first page. So we've got our income statement metrics, our sales metrics, our sales rep volume metrics, all of which quite dynamic and visually stimulating. But then beyond that, we've also got our top 15 customers, which can be reduced into was it another statement form as well. So if we want to see how well we're selling across specific customers or specific products, this will be produced for you immediately right from the get-go. Apologies, I'm not sure what's happening here today, so let me move on quite swiftly. So here we've got our variance dash. Now this is just showing specific data across the United States subsidiary, our US currency, and Abbas Inc. But if we change this from our third-party item to an actual item that we are selling, change that again, apologies. So I'm going to guess that they've made a few changes and there's not much data in this side of things, so apologies for that. But moving on to our variance analysis. So very similarly here to what I'd mentioned earlier, you can see that we've got quite a lot of underlying detail in the background here for our actual versus forecast for current month. This will all be pulled and calculated for you, of which we can also create very ad hoc reports in the background within our Microsoft Office interface, which we call Smart View. So not just for Excel, but for PowerPoint, Word, and so on as well. We've got a range of these different reports as well, which I know quite a lot of you will be creating in the background. So we've got our actual to plan for current month, actual versus prior year forecast for current month, year-to-date actuals and budget. And this can extend onwards. I believe it's got a couple more here. Yeah, full year variance report and so on. Are there any questions so far? I'm just making sure that I'm not going too quickly for anybody.
There's no questions in the chat at the moment.
No, no problem. Oh, we've got another person admitting. Okay, great. Well, let's go back into our home screen. And from here, let's touch on our workforce planning. Maybe we want to include the plan around our company roster and essentially see how this is adding up against our forecast and budget for the organization. So here we can see we've got our full company roster. Now, for any of those who are seeing this and getting a little bit nervous because you're seeing sales, engineering, operations, administration, so on, the key administrator, who's usually a finance person, they will have full access to this and they'll be able to see. That administrator will then give access to whoever else would be able to. So for instance, they may not give the full company roster over to the head of sales or the VP of sales, for instance, but they may want to give just the sales department a view of the departmental roster. Now, what I wanted to point out in the full company roster here was not only are we able to review all of the data, so first of all, their hire date and their termination date, or if they've, for instance, similar to Kennett Avery, if they have started within one department, finished, and then moved on to a different department, namely sales and engineering, for instance, and how that has impacted the organization, what has changed from sales rep to sales manager, what type of salary they're on, whether it's salary based or hourly, if the salary has increased, their rate of pay and what they're looking at, whether that be hourly, so 14 within this currency would be US dollars, or the overall monthly payment of what they would receive. You've got your debt allocation on top of that. If they are hourly based, they may also get overtime bonuses. As this is US based, you'll also notice a few different things like 401k. So what that would be here would be our pension plan, whether the person gets medical, dental, and so on, if they're including a spouse or family member into that. Obviously work location as well, but it will look very different to, it will probably be London or other parts of the UK, for instance, or maybe a part of Europe. We also have right down at the bottom, we've got our to be hired part as well. So for instance, we're looking to hire 2 people, one in sales and one in administration within our first hiring wave. We've got the hire dates already set out for them. No termination date, obviously, because they are not even with the organization yet. And then all of the additional information there afterwards. Okay, so moving on to our departmental roster. As you can see here, we're in the sales department within the US subsidiary, and USD again as the currency. We've got all of our sales to be hired down the bottom and exactly what they'll be looking at from the organizational perspective, of which all of this can be changed either one by one within the sales functionality and the point of view tab at the top, so we can review different numbers. Again, this has an audit trail, so no one from specific departments who don't have access to the sales data or operational or admin data will be able to see any of this information. Or if we want to change all of them as a whole, as we're going through, we can change sales department here, USD, and so on, all from here, and we can just push the apply button. So you can see here, we've only got one person, Kennett Avery, within the engineering department. In employee status, we're able to see the whole organization and whether they're an active member or not. Again, January to July is our actuals for the year of FY18. The zeros are meaning that they haven't started the organization yet. Active being that they are active, all of which these come with sort of intuitive drop downs, as do the other pages as well. Maybe the person's on a leave of absence for whatever reason. We've got our departure. So Kennett Avery, as we know, has switched departments. So he's been active up until June when he departed that department, and active again in the month of July for the engineering department. We can also add department employees, of which we're just essentially right-clicking and adding each individual department employee that we want. I believe there's some information in the administration tab. Push go. Maybe not on that one. For our add new hires by department, obviously these are what we had already specified earlier on. So we've got one person coming into the administration department. In the sales department, I believe we had 5 or 6 people who were starting by the end of the year, and of which we're able to add all of these in, which would then go into our departmental roster and company roster moving forward. And all of these have a range of different drop downs based on job title, salary, so on and so forth. So if we drop down to our employee review tab within our workforce planning element, we can see here exactly how well the overall company is doing on the employee expenses. So whether that be the salary, raises, overtime, bonuses, pension, medical, so on and so forth. We can go from there into departmental expenses for the company. So we can choose exactly which department and what expenses are coming up against. So we can again plan against these numbers against our overall budget. We can check out our company expenses as a whole. So all of our data coming in here at this point, and this is specifically looking at what Tom Anderson has brought in. So we're looking at existing employees, and Tom has obviously started quite earlier on, but so quite late on. But if we go to Connor Avery, for instance, who we know had changed departments. So his data is sitting from January to May, and then he changed departments over. At the end, we've got a department employee review, which is just a dynamic dashboard based on the overall information prior. So company expenses, department employee expenses, and department headcount, which is a great visual to see exactly who we have in terms of full-time staff moving forward and how that works against our budget. Finally, if we click into our bottom tab here, so this is just talking about our assumptions. So we've got our pay schedule, work days within a month, which we know, so 22 to 23 at most per month, how many payment schedules there are for that specific pay schedule. So even if you are, for instance, you can change this to 2 or 3 or 4 if you are doing a weekly payment schedule, or bi-weekly to any of your hourly staff. We have our annual assumptions here. So these are basing on the 401k eligibility. So for instance, a specific person will be eligible to add or increase their 401k or their pension plan after 90 days of working with the company. The general hours that each person will usually work in a day, what the contributions are, so on and so forth. And all of these are pretty much more US-centric terms for the different types of benefits that they may be applicable to. I'm moving into our monthly assumptions. So exactly how each of these are working on a monthly basis, what type of plan, was it medical plan or dental plan or so on that they're looking at, based on employees and spouses and family and so on. And this will be more based on the number of employees that are accepting this rather than on a monetary value. And then finally, we've got our location assumptions. Now, this one is a little bit more US-centric, as obviously the US has a different type of tax code per their different states. So this might be applicable for you, but more on a country basis if you have other countries across the rest of Europe, the US, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is our workforce planning element. Just before I do skip off, David, were there any questions around this? Any areas to touch?
No questions.
No?
None yet. Just a reminder to everyone that you can leave questions in the chat box.
Okay, so just as I'm also being quite careful on time as well, I thought what would be a great view to go off onto would be our Smart View integration. So for those who don't know, we have an integration to Microsoft Office products, so PowerPoint, Excel, and Word, called Smart View, of which we are able to create ad hoc reports on the fly and able to refresh our data for a different particular month, maybe on a PowerPoint presentation that's being presented to the board, and that will be automatically updated with the live data that's coming through NetSuite planning and budgeting. So I've already set up Smart View today just to give you a view. You'll notice here that we've got our Smart View, and this is our URL code that's going directly into NSPB. So NSPB being our web interface, and Smart View is what we call our Office interface. You'll notice here, for instance, we've got the view exactly of where all of our data is going into within NetSuite planning and budgeting on the web. So if I go into our library, for instance, what we're looking at here is just an income statement report. But I'm just showing you exactly how quickly we can get to our income statement report from Smart View. So if we go into our planning folder, our financials folder, and then we have our income statement folder here. If I double click this, it will just open up our latest, most up-to-date version of our income statement. I'm going to be using the top of the screen. I'm going to move this back down. So apologies for constantly chopping and changing this for those who've been on the call all day. So you can see we've got Smart View here at the top. This is our Smart View panel, and then we've got planning. So if we push the Analyze button really quickly, we'll notice that we've got our point of view that we had seen within NetSuite Planning and Budgeting web version. So we can see here, this is how we're able to slice and dice the data. So we could, for instance, work against our total location, relationships, departments, items, class, subsidiaries, and currency, you name it. We can pull all of this in here quite quickly and work against the data almost immediately. So, for instance, we're working off of an income statement report, but if I was to create a very quick ad hoc report based on, let's say, our total sales. So if we wanted to just click on total sales, we can push the keep only button. So there we've just reduced our income statement from the page or 2-page information that was on there already. If we want to, for instance, because we've got actuals from January until the month of July, and then we forecast for the rest of the year and 1 year ahead. Let's say we want to keep our actuals, but for the month of July, for instance. So we're going to keep both FY18 and FY19. So quite quickly, just by pushing the keep only button, we've cut this down to a very quick and easy to view set of numbers that are coming out of our total sales. But if we wanted to, for instance, insert a tab here, now what I could do is I could drag and drop our total. I could, it's because I held down enter too long. But if I drag and drop was a total item here, we can see total item against that. Or what I can do is actually just type it in. So once you've become used to the way the system works, you can quite quickly push type in total item, and then you'll see that the color has changed behind it. And we can, for instance, now against total item, you can see it's taken off of our point of view tab at the top. We can either double click or we can zoom in for more detail. We can see to the next level of total item, we can see from bottom level of total item, or we can click into all levels. So if I click into all levels, you can see that we've got all of this information based on our services, our non-inventory items, our inventory items, and so on. And we can also expand our total sales. But for instance, if we wanted to go one step further than this and create a quick report. So for instance, just before I move on, how about we add this versus this. We can quite quickly, obviously there's only a certain amount of information within our forecast, so that's the reason why it's coming up as value. We can change this so that it only comes up to zeros or just the initial value from our actuals. But what I wanted to show you, for instance, is if we were to change this to, if we add this over, for instance, and change this to year to date, and push the refresh button. There we go. And we push the refresh button, and then it automatically pulls all of this data that we've already got within NetSuite planning and budgeting from our web interface directly into Excel. We can even go one further. So if we, for instance, want to create a quick 6x6 out of this report, and we change this over to, for instance, total year. Push refresh again. Apologies. So there we have our year total, and quite quickly we can add some Excel functionality like I did within this tab here, and you're able to then add all of the calculations off of the back of that. But quite quickly you can see just how powerful the solution is in terms of its capabilities of being able to pull all of the live data that is being pulled from NetSuite planning and budgeting directly into our Microsoft Office interface. Now from here, what we can do is, if we like the look and feel of this, this variance report that we've created, we can save an ad hoc, a smart form. So if I was to save this as was it the Elevate2 webinar variance report, we can submit formatting data, and we're just saving it to the library, which is just here within our panel. Push the OK button. And if I take out the submitted data, well, what would usually happen is it would save right here to the side, and it would stay in our library, and we'd be able to pull this up. So for instance, our test here, which is another one that we've done in the past, and we'll be able to pull this directly, not only within to Smart View, as I'd shown when pulling an income statement from our panel, but also into NetSuite planning and budgeting's web interface as well. Okay, David, I'm sure the answer is probably no, but were there any questions in the chat room around Smart View at all?
No further questions.
No? Okay, so that's overall the majority of our demo today. We'll be happy to talk and show more if there's any specific questions or requirements on this front. What I'm going to do is jump back into my PowerPoint presentation just to touch on a little bit of the background of where NetSuite planning and budgeting comes from, and what we are doing at the moment with Elevate2. So that was the demo. What is NetSuite planning and budgeting? So NetSuite planning and budgeting is derived from the 80s. A lot of these may stick out to you. For instance, Abbas, the DeLorean from Back to the Future, maybe Super Nintendo. But one of the key things that we like to touch on here is the Rubik's Cube. Now, the Rubik's Cube is allowing you to slice and dice the colors into a different variant way. Similarly, how NetSuite planning and budgeting allows you to slice and dice your data in a much more streamlined fashion. Now, where does NetSuite planning and budgeting come from? Well, it's actually comes from Hyperion, for those who may have come across it before. Now, Hyperion is an Oracle product and has been repurposed into NetSuite planning and budgeting for the mid-market and SMB space. You may remember that Hyperion used to cost $1 million back in the day just for the solution, and then would have to be maintained by a group of 3 or more people within a small room, basically looking after the data warehouse. So what is Hyperion, for those who don't know? Oracle acquired Hyperion back in 2007 for $3.3 billion. It immediately became the leader in EPM solutions, so Enterprise Performance Management Solutions. And it was done, they did so to land and expand on SAP's current customers. So Oracle immediately became the EPM leader within this field shortly after the acquisition. So this is a very good slide that I think would be interesting for you all. This comes from the Oracle Customer Value Index, which basically gives detail of our customers who have used the solution for more than 12 months. So what have our customers seen so far? That they're able to collaborate with all of their different departments to give information to stakeholders. There's 30% less time in the planning process. They have 32% less time in creating management reports. And an overall, they've seen a 12% increase in forecasting accuracy since purchasing NetSuite planning and budgeting, which I would say is an overall modest amount. And I've heard generally quite a lot more from my personal customers anyway. So why NetSuite planning and budgeting? So here are some of our customers to date, thus far, that are using the solution. All of which I'm presuming are names that probably stand out to you: HSBC, Santander, Unilever, Coca-Cola, you name it. Now, since our launch back in 2017, since we were brought to the mid-market and SMB space, we have more than 850 customers across 35 different industries, so all specific to their industry standards and needs, across more than 40 different countries adhering to their languages and rules, and more than 12,000 users. Now, this is actually a little bit of an older slide, so I'd say we're closer to the 1,000 customers and about 15,000 users at present. Now, here are another set of our customers that have come across in the last 12 months across all of EMEA. So some of these may stand out to you. For those who don't know some of them, MessageBird is the instant messaging platform that's used via Uber. So for you and your driver, or when you're speaking to Uber head office, this is the instant messaging platform that they use. And they use us across all of EMEA and all of their departments. Whereas, for instance, Schneider Electric, who are quite a large organization, they use us from a departmental point of view. So we work with them specifically within Schneider Electric's wind turbine and solar energy unit. So this is another area where we will work with a division of an organization and expand as and when, scale with them as and when the need fits. Which is where we come through on the top 4 differentiators that make us the market leader within this area. So the key differentiators are integration not only to native to NetSuite, but also directly to all other open source systems. So your general ledgers, HR, CRM, payroll, and so on.
Mahdi, we do have a question now.
Fantastic, go for it.
So it's actually more than one question. So the first question is, does access to SmartView come with the license for NSPB?
Yes. So you instantly get SmartView the moment you buy NetSuite Planning and Budgeting. All you will do is go to quite quickly. There's a download button here in the panels, and you would just download the extension, which is a 3-stage process that will automatically go to Excel, PowerPoint, and Word.
Great. So there's no other fees involved if you want to use SmartView. You've just got to have Microsoft Excel and NSPB.
Basically, yeah. So the moment you buy NSPB is the moment that you will be you'll immediately have access to SmartView.
Yeah. Okay. Another question was, how is the initial budget or forecast data entered into NSPB? Can this be imported or is it manually entered?
So it's,
you can do both, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So as mentioned within SmartView, you can import the data, you can create ad hoc reports, you can also create predefined Excel sheets that will just import the data directly into the system, as it's always got that that connection. But that's if you are okay doing the manual way for the interim. Maybe you want a deeper integration on a different phase of the solution. So maybe you want to get the solution up and running in the first instance, and then you want to phase in integration with other open source tools. Just so you can get yourself up and running in the first instance. Alternatively, we can do the integration within phase 1, which is absolutely fine. Again, native to NetSuite and open to any and all other open source systems. Hopefully that answered the question. Was that the final question there, David, just before I go back to the slides?
Yeah, that's all the questions so far. I'll let you know if there are any further ones.
Fantastic. So yes, back to scalability. As mentioned with Schneider Electric, we have gone in within a divisional side of things and grown with them as and when they were able to see this scaling with their organization. We work the same way with smaller companies as well. You can start with a smaller user base to begin with, and we can also grow with you as and when you see this is key and fit for your business. The flexibility of being able to integrate with a multitude of different systems, being able to create your own dashboards, ad hoc reports, and so on. And finally, the reporting capabilities. So we have a true integration with Microsoft Office, so not just Excel, but also PowerPoint and Word as well, for any of those management report packs that you're putting together. And as you saw me do earlier on with the refresh button, we can quite quickly refresh the data for different months, quarters, or periods to which will automatically update based on the information that you already have within an NSPB. This will also work with any dynamic dashboards that you have maybe in PowerPoint as well. So if, for instance, you have dashboards for your management board packs as well that are going out monthly, you may want to send just the updated one, or if you're doing a meeting with the management team, you could just push refresh and see that those graphs change for you right in the boardroom. So what's in the box with NetSuite Planning and Budgeting? NetSuite Planning and Budgeting includes planning, reporting, and forecasting, so operational expense planning and reporting, workforce planning that we've gone through already, revenue project planning, CapEx, cash flow forecasting, predictive forecasting, top-down and bottom-up planning, multiple versions, so not just of your budget, but also of your forecast, and scenario planning. Flexible user-owned business rules, and modeling and analysis with what-if scenarios. So, as mentioned, it's integrated with NetSuite, so we've got the only true integration with NetSuite ERP, automated on-demand data import via NetSuite Save Searches, so that's where the data coming from will be from your Save Searches. Drill through back into NetSuite, which we'd shown earlier on today. our integration with Microsoft Office, so Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. The data management integration, so integrate with other open source systems like HR, CRM, and marketing systems, as well as a multitude of other, because you're not only going to be forecasting against financial data, but some of you may also want to forecast against other business related issues like operational data and so on. And run off the back of this, which I'm about to get into in a second, is the world's most powerful reporting engine, which is Essbase, which is run between both SmartView and NetSuite Planning and Budgeting, which you'll see here. So you've got NetSuite Planning and Budgeting, if you think of that as your web interface. So that's entirely all on the web with the direct integrations to your other open source systems. In between that is the cube technology, similarly to the Rubik's Cube that we talked about, which is Essbase, which stands for the Extended Spreadsheet Database, which allows you to, again, slice and dice the data, which is being pulled into SmartView, which is the interface on, which is basically our Microsoft Office interface. So coming to the end of our slide deck, we have a couple of our customer success stories. So of a couple of our very happy customers and what they think of the product. So a customer like you, Uniplaces, they're a was it their company background is they started back in 2011. Sorry for the emails. 2011 in Porto. Now in 8 countries with more than 140 staff. And they're serving more than 250,000 students from 150 different countries. Why was planning and budgeting needed? They had Series A funding between 2016 and 2017 to scale. As a part of the expansion, it needed to be more precise and flexible with the financial planning and day-to-day budgeting. Realized that this could no longer be done on spreadsheets alone, just due to the fact of the number of customers that they had and the number of locations that they work in. 4 different locations and central, 10 to 12 different departments and 15 stakeholders, all of which have access to NetSuite Planning and Budgeting over at Uniplaces. Jonathan Childs was our key influencer over at Uniplaces, and here's what he had to say about NetSuite Planning and Budgeting. So faster reporting equals quicker decisions. Actuals now make sense to the stakeholders, which I think is very, very powerful here. Track costs in a much more efficient and effective way, so we understand more about our costs. The ability to slice and dice in Excel using SmartView has been incredibly powerful. Much more secure data, which reduces risk and provides confidence in the numbers. And much easier for me and my team to do our jobs, which essentially is what we're all looking for. Finally is our note from Bertram David, who's the CFO over at Cameo. So NetSuite Planning and Budgeting enables us to focus on our retail core business and empower financial analysts and controllers to improve our decision making by acting on the future rather than struggling to analyze the past. Again, which I think is a very powerful statement. Okay, so we're at the next steps part, which is essentially what will come after this. We do have some time for Q&A, but I'm also going to touch on another key interest for quite a lot of people on the call, which is our pricing. So if anyone has any questions, we can get into that just after the pricing aspect. The next step from here would be to get in touch with David over at Elevate2, who will be able to answer any questions that you have and arrange a discovery call so we can better understand your requirements and how you currently work for your business. So,
Mahdi, just before you go on, we do have another question.
Please go for it.
Perhaps one for both of us. It's a slightly open question. How long does an average implementation take to have up and running, including existing budget, forecast, and actual data?
Okay. So generally speaking, we've got a variant way of doing implementation, of which also we work with Elevate2 for in that instance. In terms of implementation, it's generally dependent on how much you want to work on based on the information that you've seen today. So for instance, workforce, CapEx, what if scenarios are very key to your organization, and so on. But based on what you have mentioned just now, David, it could vary anywhere between sort of 4 to 8 weeks. And again, that's just very dependent on the overall amount of background bits that you might need as well, like workforce or CapEx.
Okay, so entry-level implementation is kind of 4 to 8 weeks. Then it depends on how many models and how many different scenarios that you want to build into the plan.
Yeah, exactly right. And that can extend just a little bit further. But on average, we look somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks, maybe at a push sort of 10 plus, just depending on really the type of how in depth your models are and how frequently they're changing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mahdi.
No worries. And I hope that answered your question. Okay, so moving forward, we have a special for everybody that's on the webinar today. So our special offer is we're offering 20% off the solution. So for the platform, you would be looking at $14.90 per month, but at present we're offering it to you for $11.92, so $1,192 per month. And the user price would usually be £72 per month, but at present we're offering at £58 per user per month. And this offer is valid through all the way till the end of November. So if this is an urgent requirement for your year-end budgets, I would very highly recommend speaking to David to taking up this offer. Okay, so with this offer in mind, we're pretty much at the back end of our questions, so I'll leave it on this page for the time being. Are there any questions for the Q&A portion? Anything additional that anyone has? Again, you can take yourselves off mute if you'd like to communicate during this time.
No questions as yet. Of course, if anyone does think of any questions after we've finished, do feel free to email them through to either Mahdi or myself. We'll be sending out a recording of this webinar to everyone who's attended with our contact details. So, you know, we're here to help if you do have any questions. And I'd just like to thank you all for attending. I hope it's been useful to you.
Yes, thanks everyone for attending. Please do reach out if you have any questions, and we'll be happy to answer. Again, the next step from here would be a quick discovery call just to understand your requirements, and then we'd do a personalized demonstration for your organization moving forward after that. Let us know if this would be of interest, and we'd be happy to talk further.
Excellent. Thanks, Mahdi, and thanks everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.